thanks for having me out. Before I get started, I'd love to know who all of you are. I can't promise I'll remember because I'm really bad with names. But if everyone could go around and say your name, year, major, hometown, does that work?
Sure. I'm Jimmy. I'm a sophomore. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm a music and interactive media studies major.
Sheffield Randy. Are you actually from Cleveland?
I'm from a suburb of Cleveland,
What suburb?
Avon Lake.
Okay. It's one of my advisors. He works in politics, and he always stops somebody, especially people from Ohio, if they say they're from Cleveland, Columbus, or Cincinnati, because he's like, "Are you actually from there?" And because he asked him. Sorry for the interruption.
Makes sense. I'm from Cleveland also. Well, Sugar Falls on the east side. My name's Claire, and I'm a graphic design major, junior.
I'm Adam from Cincinnati. I'm a sophomore, and I'm a microbiology and biology double major.
You're mad at him.
Ish.
Gotcha.
So yes.
I'm Anna Lucia. I'm from the Chicago suburbs. I'm a sophomore and I'm social justice studies major with double minor in philosophy and women gender studies.
I am Jill. I am a junior social studies education major, and I am from Monclova, Ohio.
My name is John. I am a first-year master's student in the Student Affairs and Higher Education program, and I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
Where in Chicago?
The Maywood area.
I'm Kirsten. I'm a sophomore and holding global politics major in Dublin, Ohio.
I'm Cole. I am a senior marketing and individualized studies double major from which one should I say? Atlantic City, New Jersey. I'm not.
What do you do with your studies?
My senior project is in the impact of religion in politics. So I'm getting that started, and that is a daunting task. For those of you who don't know, individualized studies is it's where you kind of make your own major, and so I'm on my senior project, and it's.
How would you define your major?
What do you mean, how I found
But
major?
other than as your senior project, but like.
So I'm actually in a really interesting predicament. What I took the courses in is absolutely nothing to do with my senior project. So I was focusing on creativity and corporate innovation, and realized that I did not want to do my project on that. So that was my major, but my project has nothing to do with that. So yeah, so that's my daily task. But this is interesting because I don't do these a lot, but they're fun. So I'll talk about a few things. I don't like talking a lot, sure. But I'd rather have a conversation and see what you guys all want to know about student leadership, even though I'm sure you guys are all student leaders yourselves, so I probably don't have much to say in that area. But I'd love to hear about your thoughts on what's going on campus and issues you guys are having, what the issues are on campus, what do you think needs to be worked on, that kind of thing. So I will give you a little background of myself and my involvement with ASG. I actually started in ASG my first year as a freshman senator. I was in Haverhurst. Actually, it was an interesting story. I had to run 2 elections. They screwed up the first election. They weren't even supposed to have it, and so I had to run twice. And I ran against 2 different people in both elections. I won them both, so it worked out fine. And then I spent that year as a senator from Haverhurst. Back then, we used to only do senators based off of 1 or 2 halls. We switched over to kind of more a district-based system my junior year. And so that year, I really kind of realized that ASG, like student government politics, was kind of what I wanted to do on campus. I really enjoyed the impact that you could have, and there's some frustrating things about it, but overall, it's really nice to see not just I get this much out of it, but seeing like walk by the market over in Armstrong and seeing it's open 24 hours a day, seeing that people are using that kind of thing. It's really nice to have that impact. As a freshman senator, I worked on pretty much whatever issue kind of was bothering me. A lot of what I spent dealt with housing, dining, and parking, and so kind of found a niche for myself there. And fortunately that year we kind of changed how we did a few things and created a position that was really fit just for me, which was on-campus affairs. And so as a freshman I ran for that and was elected to that. I was also senator of the year, so I like to give a little brag for myself. I then was elected to be on-campus affairs, served in that role for 2 years, and really just loved that position. Kind of made really good relationships with parking, because everyone loves parking dining and housing, and really saw the good impact of what we were doing. So, for example, the Pulley Diner and the Market in Armstrong are open 24 hours a day because some of the work we were able to do, which is really nice. We've kind of developed a relationship in dining over the last few years, which has made them really receptive to the point where my successor has weekly meetings with them where she just pretty much brings them, here's what's wrong with dining this week, and they fix it almost immediately. So we've been really happy to see that. And parking, some of the changes that we made, starting this year, students are not allowed to park the campus after 6 p.m. As long as you have a yellow pass. I live in Maple Street, so anytime you don't need a pass after 6 p.m. So that's one of the changes we made. We also made blue passes application-based so that anybody can get them. These are just some of the things I like to pull up, but hopefully you guys take advantage of those things. But then, so after, I kind of had a realization pretty early on, I don't know exactly when, but in my junior year, I kind of knew that I was going to run for student body president. I had known all of my predecessors since I had been here, and a lot of them did good things, a lot of them not so good things. I just wanted to take my own stab at it, so I opted to run. February last year, right at the beginning of February, I found my vice president, Natalie Beta, and we were just an awesome team. This one came on at one point, and Kirsten actually served as my campaign manager last year and did a kick-butt job, obviously. And so we ran, and I ran a campaign that I wanted to make sure that we were relaying the message well. So our slogan was that we put voice of Miami on everything. That's kind of the motto we ran with. And there was a reason for that, is because I've noticed a lot, and especially the fact that I'm in ASG, and sometimes you see people run for student body president, and like, I want to be the anti-ASG candidate, and things like that, which happens in the real world as well. I want to be the anti-government candidate. I felt like I could do more knowing the system, but working to change it. And so we ran as a voice of Miami because we wanted to work on issues that actually frustrated people on a day-to-day basis, and wasn't us just sitting in a room coming up with ideas. With that, we kind of ran with kind of 4 things in mind, which I really realized I've kind of like taken these into my own life, in that if I pursue something, I want to make sure that they meet these 4 characteristics. Do you remember? Tess, do you remember what they were? She never listens to it. It was so for me, everything had to be relevant, realistic, new, and specific. And that mostly goes for campaigns, especially with the new. My big thing with that was, you don't want to put out ideas that people are already pursuing. I mean, you can focus on those old ideas, but when you're running for something, you want to bring something new to the table, because every person's different, so you want to bring what you can. Realistic had to do with, don't promise things that you know can't get done. Especially if you're involved already, if you already had involvement, don't say a bunch of things that you know are never going to happen just because you want somebody's votes. I mean, for me, integrity was a big part of it. I didn't want to look in the mirror every day when I got home and be like, I'm just doing this and I have no respect for myself anymore. So that was a big part of that. Relevant was really important, because I think if you're going to talk about these issues, if you're going to show people around campus that ASG can do things for them, you want to show them that it has to do with issues that you care about. So there's a lot that we're doing with internal ASG stuff, but I understand that most people on campus that's not what they're concerned about. They're concerned about, I don't want a $75 parking ticket. So that was, some of the focus that we had. And specific, I think, is really important. I don't think you can be realistic without being specific. I think you have to lay out this, I want this. I want to be able to put this checkbox down and say, I was able to do blank, and this is, we finished this or we didn't. So that's kind of what we ran on. And so for us, I think one of the things that we tried to do as much as we can was reach out to as many people. So and this is actually how Kirsten got involved. I got a list of every student organization president on campus. We sent them an email. It was about 400 emails, and then I waited for the responses to come back, and the responses we're pouring in to basically we sent an email and said, we'd love to come and speak to you in the next 4 weeks, and the responses started pouring in. I'm like, I can't do this. So then Kirsten kind of came in and organized everything and actually made sure that we made those speeches on time, and it was great. She sent me an email every day. I was like, here's where you're going tonight, and it was great. And she's in a position, so it worked out well. But yeah, I mean, that was I loved that. Honestly, campaigning was one of my favorite things I've done at Miami. Not just being president, but going around and talking to as many people as possible and having a dialogue. And this is what bothers me, and this is what my issue is, and this is what matters. And the thing is, those conversations have probably been happening for 205 years. But it's and sometimes things don't change, sometimes things do. But it's good to have those conversations. And I just love going out. And the great thing was we learned so much that we had never known before. I mean, I'm in both the business school and College of Arts and Sciences, but you know, you realize that people in engineering, people in creative arts, people in education have such other issues that you don't even worry about. So, for example, I was in an engineering, women in engineering society meeting one night, and they start talking about how they are in the engineering building all day and they can't get food because you can't leave the building, and so, you know, how can we solve that? And so now we're looking at potentially getting vending machines that have sandwiches and salads and things like that. It's ideas like that that come out from having conversations and talking to as many people as possible. And one of the things I really love is just trying to get around and talk and meet the different people on campus, because we can all come back here in 25 years and talk about our Miami experience. That's going to be one thing. It's really nice to get a sense of what that means to a variety of different people, because Miami could be two completely different schools for people who were here at the same time, and that's just an interesting thing that I really kind of realized when I was out in that. And so we came away, ran as hard as we could, spent a good amount of money too, which was not my favorite part. And we were fortunate enough to be elected. It was April 10th, I always remember the date. We were sitting in the Pulley Diner and we saw our opponents. We were sitting across from the ASG office and our opponents were walking in, and we saw them walk out. They walked in smiling and they walked out upset, and so we were like, oh my God. And then they called us in and it was like the greatest thing ever, and yeah. And so that brings me to where I am now. So I guess what does each day look like? So I mean, probably a lot of what you guys are doing too. I mean, I tried to make my schedule this year as minimal class time as possible. So I actually only have classes Tuesdays, Thursdays. I'm taking 7 credits online, which is really helpful. It's just a lot of meetings, and it's a lot of meetings that sometimes are scheduled, and sometimes they call you in and say, "I need to see you this week." Or and honestly, I think most of what I'm able to get done is walking into an administrative building like Rowdebush or Warfield and running into somebody. And that's honestly where we get the most done, and it's like a really good lesson I've learned, is that sometimes you get the most done when you kind of don't expect to run into someone. Sometimes you go out of your way to run into someone, if you know what I mean. You see somebody and you kind of do a long loop and kind of just try, oh my God, it's you, and let's talk about this. Let me chew your ear off about this and have a conversation for the next half an hour, which they love, I'm sure. And so that's I mean, so a lot of different meetings, and then also a lot of just, you're walking around campus and you'd be surprised how many times a day someone comes up to you and says, oh, I want to ask you about this problem, I want to ask you this problem. It happens a lot, and I think the best thing to do is take in what they say. And Kirsten knows this because she probably is on the other end of it. If someone says something to me about a problem they're having, and I immediately call somebody on the ASG cabinet to say, hey, I need you to look into this. I mean, that's one thing I think we are really trying for, is to be responsive as possible and to understand, like, there are a lot of issues that we might not be able to cover. Let's get answers for people and that kind of thing. But that's a day in the life. It's hard to really give what a real day looks like because they're all so different. And it's also really interesting that you can plan as much as you want, but you never know what's going to pop up. So, for example, right now I'm serving on the Regional Campus Differentiation Task Force. So if you're not aware of the news that's going around, they're trying to take away to separate Hamilton and Middletown campuses kind of from Oxford, and make them their own identity. And they've asked me to represent the Oxford students in that conversation. Not something I expected to work on at all this summer, but that's something that's really, going to probably be a big focus, not for all of ASU, but for me over the next few months, because I'm on this committee that's meeting once a week, and they want a recommendation by November 21st, and our first meeting was last Friday. So that's those are for a huge task with a really expedited timeline. And so, yeah, so that's about all I got. I can give you thoughts on leadership. I don't want to insult you guys because we're all students, and I don't think I know much more than another student does. So if I am, I'm sorry. But what questions do you guys have about life on campus, about specific issues, that kind of thing? Yeah.
This isn't like super formal question. I'm just curious. So a lot of people on campus know your face at the very least. Most people know your name. It's like, I was talking to someone before. Oh, the president's coming in to talk to us today, and it's like, oh, Cole? I'm like, yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
It's like, so do you get like random people who you have no idea who they are all the time? They're not even talking about it, just like, Cole, what's up? And then you gotta play the what's up card.
Yeah.
Or worse, when you probably did meet them and then you're like,
that's
I don't remember.
usually the case. Oh, so it's like, and not to say that it's like, and I don't want to overplay this. It gives you, like, if I ever become famous in, like, the world, I can understand, like, what that's kind of like, because you meet somebody and they remember the whole instance and they can tell you everything about the time you had a conversation with them, and it's like, I'm so sorry, I don't remember who you are. It happens at least once a day. And so what I try to do is, as much as I can, is be like, if I'm close enough to them, be like, I am so sorry, I know we've spoken, but can you just remind me of your name? Which I'll probably have to do with every one of you. So my favorite one though is my favorite one of the people who come up to me and they're like, I know you don't know. I know we've spoken. I know you know who I am. My name is this. And I'm like, thank you. You're the best. You're my favorite. Yeah, it happens a lot. It's really weird. I actually had to call one of my predecessors to be like, what do you do when you're at a bar and just everyone comes up to you? And it's like, it's the president. How do you respond to that? And he was like, he's like, I would just say, hey, how you doing? And that's kind of what I've been doing. Like, hey, how you doing? I mean, sometimes I'm joking, like, oh, we're the president's here. What are you talking about? And then everyone, that corny joke gets old pretty. It's also when, like, you do that to somebody like 3 times, like, okay, I get it, cool. You're trying to be funny. But yeah, it happens all the time, and it's weird. It's like it totally changes how you're always on anytime I'm on campus. It's like I don't go throughout a day with someone like knowing who I am or coming up to me, either just saying hi or like not a problem, which is it's a nice thing and it's like also like a bad thing.
Yeah.
Which makes kind of leaving town sometimes both fun and like it's like, oh great, no one knows who I am here, no one's gonna bother me with this. But it's also like sometimes like, oh yay, people know who I am. Just being honest. So that didn't really answer your question, but
it's exactly what I'm doing though. So quick follow up though.
Yeah.
Do you get that with professors at all, where it's like you'll be in class and the president's like, Mr. Student Body President, do you have a thought on this? Like,
so it's not so much in class. Also, I'm like not in class much because I'm doing a lot online.
Yeah.
But when it's professors who like knew me before, they'll always say like Mr. President, and like they always say it in that exact same tone every single time. Yeah, and it's like I'm like, you don't have, please don't call me that stuff. And they're like, and then. So one thing that was so interesting, one of my predecessors, because I had a conversation with about 5 different people who were president in the past, and we all actually like talk occasionally by text. It was really cool when we won. One of them tweeted at me with all of the past like 8 student body presidents tagged, and it was really cool. And they all like retweeted their congratulations, which was really nice. It's like a little mini fraternity. But I talked to one of them. He said, "You're gonna have professors pull you in every which direction. They want you to support your ideas." That's something I haven't seen at all. Like, most professors don't know, and sometimes you want to remind them, but like it doesn't really do anything for you. But yeah, it's not nearly as much as the students, which I guess makes sense.
Yeah.
It's actually one really interesting thing is I just assumed, and I've never been a college administrator, and I don't know if I ever will be, so I can't. Who knows what I would do? I just assumed like. The higher up administrators would follow the elections. They would know what you were running on. But it's so funny, after 3 months of campaigning, you actually get into meetings with these people and you have to explain everything you ran on because they did not pay any attention to what you were doing. And it's just, I mean, they have a million other things going on. But the students, like, they know, like, people remember, people come up to you, like, how's 24-hour King Cafe going? And I'm like, well, we're working on it. Or not so much professors, but administrators who are the people you actually have to go to didn't even know you ran on that. You'd think like, I mean, my thought would be if I'm an administrator, I want to know what's coming. Like, I want to know have a warning about, oh, this kid's going to be charging at me with X idea, but they don't pay much attention. Understandable, they're busy people.
Oh.
So I have a lot actually,
Yeah.
because I'm in a social justice class and we talk a lot about student power
Mm-hmm.
and how a lot of students don't feel like they have any power in the government, that the university is run by donors and not by students.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I've talked to people who are in like ASG, they say, oh, the students don't know how much power they have. And I hear that quite frequently. So like, and just how can students get civically educated as far as ASG? Because I no idea what ASG does.
Yeah.
I know they deal with housing, dining, parking. How do they deal with that? How does policy get authored? Can students author policy? How do we know what senator deals with each issue? Like, I have no idea about any of these things. And so I'm just wondering, how can that happen?
Yeah. So part of it, I'll come right out and say it after 4 years in ASG. Part of it's our fault. I mean, we don't get out there enough, and it's something that's frustrated me so much. One thing we're going to be doing, it's actually based off of the kind of campaign mentality, is I want cabinet members in ASG and senators in ASG going to student works and saying, here's the issues on campus. What are your issues? Kind of that same conversation I mentioned with the engineering students. But technically, according to, any student can author a bill. Anybody can author a bill, really. It works that way in the U.S. government too, and it happens all the time. Lobbying groups will author legislation. They will write the full thing out, and then they just give it to a congressman, and that congressman proposes it. We can do the same thing too. The difference is we don't hide, lobbyists, students don't have to hide behind senators to do it. You can come, we want you to present it yourself. If you have it, I've never seen it. I would love to see it. That being said, a lot of the work is done through the cabinet members and the relationships you have with administrators, and not so much with legislation being passed, and that's kind of that sausage-making analogy to what they do in the real government. But part of that is it's a lot easier to work with people you have relationships with than it is to just come at somebody for the first time and say, I can't stand this issue, and usually you can get more kind of background knowledge on why we got to that point. But anybody can really get there. The best thing to do is approach somebody who's on Senate or in ASG, or come yourself. And we have a student concerns portion, which technically the only people who ever raise their hands are senators. But unless I'm mistaken on the rules, anybody could really raise their hand and raise a concern. My thing is we have a website, miamioh.edu/ASG, and all of our senators are listed on there. You can go and find your senator. You guys have a senator who represents you here. I don't know who it is.
It's one of our
Oh, okay, yeah. I know there's actually three.
He lives here.
Yeah.
I know one of them, and I know Alex lives here.
There's Nathan Holiday.
Yeah. In Miami.
Yeah.
So you can go to Alex and say, hey, could you bring this up at Senator, or say that. And a lot of the times that's how people will get their concerns. Some senators, and part of that's on the senators too, they figure out what's bothering them and they bring it up. Other ones are really good at, I've heard this from 5 different people. I think this is the time to bring this one up. The one thing I'll say in terms of that comment on students have more power than they realize is that is something, that's something I never realized until this summer, is the one difference between someone who works at the university and us is we never have to stop talking. At some level, someone to the highest level administrator, or everyone who works at the university has a boss. Even President Hodge, the board of trustees is his boss. Students don't have a boss. So if an issue is bothering you, you never have to stop. You have to realize that there are realities and you have to be reasonable. That's the big thing I came to 2 big realizations this summer. Both of them had, they kind of complemented each other. Technically, if you look at it, to be flat out honest, ASG student government students have no implementation power. I can't just say, I want parking times changed, and then wave a wand and parking times change. And that's a little oh crap, I can't do anything. But then you back that up with, but I can schedule a meeting with this person every day of the month for the next month, and I'm not going to leave their office until they give me an answer. That's a lot of power. You can actually do a lot with that. The one thing I always tell people though is the best thing to do is just be organized and be smart and have your knowledge and have your information, because you wouldn't know, you couldn't even imagine how many times a day the director of dining, the director of parking, president, all these people get emails from students yelling and screaming about something like this. And that's a real concern they have, but they immediately don't care because they didn't do it in a respectful way. They did it in a way that was just, I hate this, I want you to change this. If you come in educated with the knowledge on what's going on, it goes so far. It's amazing how far it goes and how much respect they have for that.
In regards to that with knowledge, I'm really interested with the sexual assault policy on campus, and just thinking about that, going through the Miami website, it's hard to navigate. It's hard to know exactly where things are. The fire and crime report came out a couple weeks ago, but until it did, there was nothing since 2012. And then I had to go back through, and some of the sexual assault board members that are listed on the website are not still here. Are not still board members. So I guess how can we get more accurate information on already existing policies?
I always think the best thing to do is go on the Miami directory, find the person you need to find, and I know you might not know their name. That's another thing within ASG cabinet. I mean, technically, ASG is there to represent you. We know. I mean, I can list 3 people right now you need to call about sexual assault policies.
Like a Gedson is like the one person that I go to.
Yeah, that's a Title IX coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and then Rebecca. I don't know if you know Rebecca Baudrillon.
No, I don't.
Okay, so that's I think she's Becca's boss technically. She's in charge of student wellness, and then Kip Alicio is the director of counseling services. They have all that. I mean, they're the people who have all the information. I mean, that's just a tough thing. It's so the university. We have a really good communications department who put out really good stuff. They do a really good job updating their the public-facing parts of the website in the university. It's each individual department does not always do the best job of updating what they need to, and I know that's like with technology and everything like that, but. I would honestly, my thing is pick up the phone and call somebody. And honestly, the one you can call the Miami directory and say hi, like talk to someone about sexual assault policy on campus, and they can Google that and figure out exactly the person and then connect you to that person. ASG used to have a service called Student Legal Service, where if you got in trouble, we could connect you with a lawyer. We don't have it anymore, but it happens. We get calls at least once a week of someone calling, hi, I need legal help, and it connects to us for some reason. So they have that ability to you give them a topic issue and they'll connect you with somebody like that.
Why doesn't the ASG have that anymore?
Not 100%. So I think part of it was assigned to a cabinet member who didn't. It was assigned to not a specific person, but a cabinet position that didn't really have. So it was assigned to the vice president to run that, and every vice president comes in every year with completely different agendas, completely new stuff, and they weren't focusing on it. Also, it was really underutilized. And it sounds like a great service, but it was. I mean, we'd probably get 2 people a semester who would use it, so that was part of it.
I have more questions, but y'all should go first.
Nobody think hard hitting? That's my fun question.
Finish up your topic with you.
Like another thing, I know when we were freshmen, they came out with the I Am Miami campaign, and I sort of because of I'm a student org leader, and so I know a lot of grad students and some people who are.
You're a sophomore, right?
Yeah, and some people who are in Sahi.
That was not our freshman.
What?
That was not our freshman year. It's just funny to hear that it was.
Yeah, me and Adam. So we were freshmen together. And so I hear a lot of that being thrown around, and I'm curious to see how it works out in ASG. Does it affect how ASG operates?
Yeah, I Am Miami. I mean, so the thing with I Am Miami, I Am Miami. Here's what I can say, because this is what I've said to administrators. I Am Miami is a good idea. My issue with it is they didn't have students in the room when they came up with it, and they're still and they know that. They kind of have this situation where they've bought into it and they will still want us to go after it.
And just sort of a suggestion, if you know who Dr. Harrington is, she's the professor of she's pretty much a professor of the social justice department, and we met with the Office of Community Engagement and basically vented about campus problems in a very specific way. So I mean, if you're looking for a place to send a senator, contact Dr. Harrington, because a lot of these are upper level social justice students who are active in all areas of the campus.
Yeah, why don't you run for senator?
Because I don't have the time. That's another thing when I talk about civic engagement for the regular student. Not everybody has time to do that or wants to do that. So how can people be involved without having that huge responsibility?
So the one thing I'll say is I think part of it comes from ASG and this is something that we're actually looking at this year, and I kind of alluded to earlier. We're going to be looking at restructuring how we have Senate representatives. So right now we do it in a location-based way. So 3 senators for the district you all are in, and 24 off-campus senators. So it equals to 52 total. The issue with that is you still get the same type of people who are senators. One thing we're going to be looking at is, instead of doing it that way, doing senators based off of academics. So that might be department, that might be division, that might be breaking up divisions into social sciences, humanities, and hard sciences for college arts and science kind of thing. And so that way each academic division is represented. So ASU doesn't do the best job representing creative arts. One thing that we've I've tasked AFG with this year. My chief of staff, who appoints all of our positions, all of our committee representatives across the university. I want good representation of all these divisions. So University Senate, which is the overarching governing body for the university, as well as the board of trustees. That one is mostly faculty, but we have 10 students on there, 11 including myself, and so I appoint those students. So what I've said is I want one student from every division on there. What can you guys do? I mean, again, that's always being counted. The one thing I'll say is that Senate is not as much as a time commitment as people realize, and I think the best thing a senator can do is come for the hour-and-a-half meeting a week and just express their concerns. It's other than that hour-and-a-half meeting, it's less than what you think it is. And in my opinion, I think Senate should be the top leaders on campus. I think Senate should be the top leaders of all the major organizations. I think we should have fraternity presidents, sorority presidents, student org presidents, people who are involved in all these positions come together and talk about here are the major issues, because they do a good job representing their groups already. Let's get all of those people together in a room. I mean, that's my utopian idea of what Senate should look like, but that's kind of how I wish we could structure ourselves more. And my hope is that if we move to this more academic-based system, it'll keep the thought at higher level, and so that way we can try to encourage some higher-level students who already are involved heavily to get involved more.
I really like that because I thought about getting involved with Senate, but sort of kind of what determined me was that I assume it would be all or mostly students in political science or students who have like governmental aspirations later. And those people are generally cool, but that it might not be as diverse, or that I kind of already know those kinds of students outside of a Senate situation. So I really like that. Just personally.
Yeah, I mean, so one thing I'll say is you'd be surprised. We are more diverse than I think people would. I think we're more diverse than I think we even realize. We do.
That's good.
We have. I think the only division we don't have represented is creative arts already. Or do we have any architecture majors?
My roommate is.
I know we used to have architecture majors. So I mean, we already have that already, but I think we need to. The problem is that's a year thing. We need to more institutionalize that. So we're hoping to, but I'm glad to hear that you are a fan of that.
That's actually how they debated putting together the Senate back when they were funding the U.S.
Oh.
They went the other way, and geographically.
Yeah.
They thought about doing it by interest, like education and agriculture and stuff, and then they're like, wait, that's not feasible, but it would be feasible today.
And now we have 2 senators from Wyoming with 600,000 people. 2 senators from California with a couple million.
Yep. Maybe it wasn't Senate. I think it was the House. They thought about doing it that way, but yeah, still.
Get Senator in Wyoming. The dream.
You could probably meet every single one of your constituents.
You could.
I'm not sure you would want to.
Oh, no, I don't want to.
I think I'm moving to Delaware. It's because it's tiny, but it's got a low amount of people. So you don't have to drive as far.
Oh, yeah, you can knock on every door.
Did you have something?
No, I was just stretching my finger.
So when did you first start thinking about student body president?
The day on the campus.
I can prove this.
Seriously, no. It's always
Kindergarten.
Wasn't it the worst kept secret in ASG?
It was the worst kept
all
secret
last
in
year.
So actually, but that was strategically. So I
I
probably
want to make the presidents know. You want anyone else is thinking about it.
sophomore year is probably when I was like, I would love to do this. I think I pretty much knew I knew for a fact when they were running my sophomore year, so the grade above me to be president. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be doing that next year. But probably sophomore year, being on cabinet, everything like that. I'm probably gonna do that. I think at freshman year I was still boring, and even to start a sophomore year where I probably could have latched on to something else that could have taken me in a different direction. But it was second semester sophomore year probably. I don't know. I doubt other people do it that early.
Did you hold a student government body position in lower school?
In high school?
Yeah.
I was always in student council and student government and everything like that. What was interesting, I never won an election before I came to college, and now since college I have 100%. But I never won a competitive election. So I'd run for secretary or those they had historian. like those weird positions that nobody knew what they did. Yeah, that was like what I would go for because like nobody ran for those. But like I was like, oh, it's a seat at the table. So I was involved, but nothing major. I ran, I lost a lot.
Did you know you wanted to do this when you came here? Like you wanted to do this kind of stuff?
I probably knew in high school that I would be, I have an older brother, so I kind of got a sense of what college, he didn't go here, but what college is like. And I kind of knew, I'm going to probably be in student government. I also knew I was going to be a tour guide. I figured I would just be a tour guide wherever I went. But yeah, so I probably knew that I was going to do student government in general. And I mean, I acted on that. I mean, I like actively sought it out when I got here. Like, where do I go to run for whatever the position is? And then they told me it was Senate. I was like, I'm running for that.
What does the gender ratio look like in ASG?
Cabinet has more girls. Cabinet has more girls. I was really happy with that. So we have 13 people on cabinet. 7 are women, 6 are men.
Yeah.
Senate is probably a little more male heavy. Not by much though.
It is, but I'd say Senate has more men, but the women are more vocal.
That's definitely true.
I don't know what the numbers are.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they are. Usually, as it gets, that's not true. It's. I was gonna say usually as it gets older, less women run, but I don't know if that's completely true. It's not bad. It's more representative than like Congress, which is good.
That's good. And do you have senators for regional campuses?
Technically, ASG doesn't represent the regional campuses. So the regional campuses both have SGAs, Student Government Association, and they have their own president, their own bodies and things like that, which is actually really interesting. So I'm not the student body president of all Miami undergrads. I'm the student body president of just the Oxford students.
What about students who go to Oxford from regional campuses who still encounter tons of struggles here as regional students?
We have a commuter senator. So that is, technically, if you're in order to be the commuter senator, in order to be considered a commuter student, you have to be majority Oxford classes. Like you have to be an Oxford registered student. But that is, so that's the, I guess, the extent of the representation of that. If for those students who majority take the classes on the regional campuses, what I would say to the people who represent them is if they have issues, they should be expressing them on, to the people that they work with about the Oxford campus. Because the one thing is, with the way the regionals work, they have a dean who's here every single week at multiple times, so they can have those conversations as well, especially if they're regional campus specific, regional student specific issues.
And then as far as the split that's going on in the news right now, I've read it, but it's a little bit difficult to really understand the pros and cons. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Is the major part of that they're trying to get more associate and bachelor and graduate or whatever degrees into those colleges? So
this is I can give you some background. So Miami was the first college in Ohio to establish regional campuses. In 1966, Middletown was founded, and in 1968, Hamilton was founded. Back then, they were founded with the purpose of giving out associate degrees, because community colleges they existed, but they were few and far between. They kind of served a different purpose. They didn't, they were there more to give the practical, hands-on skills.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the perfect word. That's probably what I was looking for. And then things started changing a little bit. They started developing their own associate's degrees in more abstract skills and things like that, though they still had a lot of vocational. But we were still mostly focusing on associate's degrees. In 2008, the Ohio Board of Regents, which is the overarching higher education body for Ohio, they said we want regional campuses, not just Miami's, but OSU's and OU's and Kent's and all of that, to start focusing on bachelor's degrees to meet an economic need for that area. The difficulty for us compared to other schools is if you look at OSU's regional campuses, none of them are that close to Columbus. They're, I think most of them are at least an hour away. we and serving on this committee, which again I've only met for a week, but I asked this question. We are the only school, a public school in the country that we can find. We're looking for another one. If anyone knows one, let me know because we're struggling. That has 2 regional campuses within the same county. That are also, and also 2 regional campuses, really 4 regional campuses, because we have Westchester and the Green Tree Center, which is like our nursing program, that are one administration. So usually you see it where you'll have OSU Mansfield and OSU Marion, and there's the president of Ohio State, and under him is I don't know what the term they use is, a lot of schools use chancellor. There'll be a chancellor of Marion and a chancellor of Mansfield. We're the only one, there's just one dean of all of the regionals. And so in terms of what the split is, it's confusing. I don't even know what the answer is yet. It's really tough. I don't know where we're going, and I really realized we had a 2.5-hour meeting. It actually went even longer than that on Friday, which is also fall break, that's a great role of being president. You have fall break and still have meetings. And there's so many questions to be answered. How do we deal with faculty? Will they be related here? So a lot of it is really, they want to differentiate, and they need to serve these campuses should be serving an economic need to bolster the economy of the communities in which they serve, which is Hamilton and Middletown, which really need it because, these are 2 Rust Belt cities that face a lot of job losses when a lot of faculty is closing, things like that. But it's the question of how do we do that, and the thought is that if we keep them so close to Oxford as they already are compared to some of the other institutions, then they can't grow and flourish as much as they need to.
So we would move them out of those communities as an option?
No, it's keep them there, but give them the ability to kind of do their own thing, because if their degrees have to go through the Oxford process of being created, we're always thinking of it in the Oxford vein. How does this relate to Oxford? Kind of pushing them away and saying, you do what you need to do to benefit yourself.
Are they looking at splitting up the administrations then of the regional campus?
So what's going to probably happen at some level is that the president of Miami will still be the president of those regional campuses, but they will have their own kind of so the provost is the second in line here. He's in charge of all academics, and he now technically oversees the dean of the regional campuses. What you probably see happening is they would have their own provost or something like that, who reports directly to the president and oversees all of the regional. And then from there, they might. So we have Farmer and College of Arts and Sciences and College of Creative Arts. They might develop their own school of technology or something like that, who then reports to this provost, who then reports to the president. But the one thing that I said is it still needs to be Miami's president, so Hodge or whoever comes after Hodge, and it still needs to be Miami's board of trustees. We're not gonna, because once the board of trustees moves away, then they become entirely different schools.
Does the degrees that students will get still say Miami University on it?
That is one of the things that's up for discussion. It's actually interesting when I talk to Oxford campus students, that's all they care about. I don't want to say Miami University. The issues from that are so much more extensive. It's hard to answer right now.
Wait, Oxford students don't want regional students to have Miami University on their degree?
They don't want them to just. They don't want our degree. I don't want to speak for all Oxford campus students. Honestly, for the general sense for most Oxford campus students is I don't really care. I know that sounds good, but that's most students is I go to Oxford. That's all I care about. For those who have expressed concerns, most of them is it's not that they don't want them to say Miami University. They just don't want them saying the same thing. Which now actually they don't say the same thing. They say so yours could say anything from the College of Arts and Sciences, the Farmer School of Business, any of the 5 divisions. Theirs says the College of Professional Studies and Applied Sciences, CPSAS, yeah, something like that. So it says something different. Now, if you're from outside Miami, you don't automatically realize that that's the Middletown campus, or that's the Hamilton campus. And that's one of the conversations that we'll be having.
Yeah, I remember that actually being like a thing that was addressed when I toured Ohio State for my dad, is that they were like, if you go to the regional campuses, like they'll say the Ohio State University, you'll have the same thing on there. And they were like reassuring people.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it's like I mean, they did do that, but is it the same education? Part of it, I mean, so if you talk to some regional campus faculty, they currently, in the way that it's currently structured, they think that everything is the same except for the residential experience. The experience of being in Oxford, the experience of this campus. Others might argue differently. I don't know. I haven't taken, I haven't been a part of that, so I can't tell you if the quality of education is as high there as it is here. That's what a lot of faculty are like really upset about, because they think it's a little insulting. Like, oh, you're just saying the quality of education is not as high there that it is here. And like I said, I can't speak. So yeah, so thanks for listening. If you guys have anything, seriously, if you have anything with the year, I mean, Kirsten lives here, and so does Alex. Even though she's not your senator, she still can represent you. Or if you have friends who are senators, I mean, that's if you want to get involved, and if you have questions for yourself, reach out to me. I mean, if you want us to set up a time to meet, if you have issues you want to talk about, I love to do that. So feel free. It might be a while till I email you back, just because I'm the worst with email right now. But yeah. So thanks for coming out and listening to my rambling.